Disclaimer, the following video has been marked as not made for kids, and as a result may contain some of the following. Viewer discretion is advised. And now that we have all that out of the way, let's pack it up, pack it in, and let this crap begin. Enjoy, you guys. Take care. Bye. What do I even say to introduce us into this video? I mean, I could talk to you all on the long and winding history trip about how Five Nights at Freddy's came to be, the continued greatness that is the man himself, Scott Cawthorne, or I could even talk about how a single game franchise has helped birth... Wait a minute, how many FNAF fan games are publicly available? Hang on a minute, FNAF. Okay, do I dare to witness the result of this? Alright, let's see. Oh my god! So following FNAF's overwhelming success, many developers took it upon themselves to put forth a game, or heck in some cases an entire series, that matched the same charm and enjoyment of Scott Cawthorne's original work. Now it started off slowly, in the beginning, as expected, but as time went on, more and more people jumped on board to take their own shot at making a fan game in this genre. Some of them even sticking over a year's amount of development into some projects. Some of these people are crazy, I freaking tell you. Now obviously, with all these fan games running around in Game Jail, it made sense that Scott Cawthorne himself would take notice in due time. And you know what Scott Cawthorne did about this? You know what stunts he pulled when overlooking his community and seeing them pump out games in his style, some which were critically praised more than his own? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now come on, in a world where giant corporations like Nintendo will go out their way to remove harmless fan games based on their properties, considering the millions upon millions of dollars they bring in every year, it's a genuine surprise to see an up-and-coming indie horror dev not only allow his community to make FNAF fan games, but even encourage it. Especially as of late. Yeah, the Fazbear Fanverse initiative, a giant collaboration involving several fan game creators who have made some of the most popular fan games over the years here in this community. It's a project that's designed to invest in this franchise, give back to developers, and hopefully bring new entries to this franchise as well. Those were Scott's words, not my own. Look, writing a script's hard, alright? I'll take any opportunity I have to not write anything more. But seriously, dude, an entire project created and funded by the man himself, but with the control of the games themselves handed to the fan game developers? I mean, it makes sense, I guess. They were the ones that bring said fan game universes into existence. However, it's just... How far will Scott Cawthorne go before he's regarded as either one of the nicest human beings in existence, or an utter madman? Anyways, I'm getting off topic here. So why is it that I'm talking about all this? Very simple. Over the years, I've subjected myself to a plethora of these FNAF fan games and wanted to help spread some love and recognition on my own. And yeah, I know I'm also making this video as a send-off of sort to me making any more FNAF content on this channel, which I'm overall fortunate is happening, just as a reminder. But I still cannot ignore the good that these fan games have done for me over the years, both in terms of channel growth and, more importantly, the new friends I've been able to make along the way. So, let's go. Here are my top 5 FNAF fan games. Also, please check the description for the rules of this list because I need to move on. Okay, thanks, bye. Alas, it only made sense that you'd weasel your way on here somewhere. Very well then, let's see what you got. Oh, whoa. Well, you've got quite a few of them, it seems. Right, how about, this one? Oh, I've definitely got to say, dude, one of your finest. So, Five Nights at Bud Rebooted, a collaborative FNAF fan game project featuring many well-known figures in the FNAF community, such as Fernate and Mickey, Pyro Rapid Fox, now more formerly known as Smile the First Lover, Pixty55, and of course, the next genius Bud himself. The game features all these characters living together in Bud's home, doing their usual stuff and overall minding their own business. That is, of course, until you come around to completely ruin that. As a disgruntled hater of Bud's content, you attempt to break into his house every night and delete all the videos you can from his YouTube channel, all the while surviving the onslaught of the house's inhabitants in your quest to do so. What starts off pretty simple very quickly turns into a madhouse as more and more characters jump into every single night to put a stop to you, and I mean, I guess for pretty good reason. I mean, I imagine that having your house invaded would be a bad thing. Yeah, probably. Anyways, the gameplay on offer here is incredibly diverse, with each individual character having their own mechanic to make your life literal hell on earth. Coming from some of Mickey's other games, such as Match Night 3, as well as the Halloween special, you notice a lot of characters in those games often share their mechanics with other characters, like most of them requiring you to shut a door on them or trigger a sound somewhere in the building to send them away. This immediately makes Find Out to Bud stand out to me, and I personally feel like that was the intention here. I mean, you've got an entire household filled with many different individuals, each with their own personalities, hobbies, and general interests. Building a character's mechanics based on these attributes was a really clever move, like how you need to keep Pixie at bay by constantly fixing his game of Beat Saber, or how you can send Bud backwards by ringing the doorbell making him believe his chicken wing order has arrived. It's inventive, represents the character, and overall it's just plain funny to see. Speaking of the funnies though, the comedy in this game, ooh, it oozes the damn thing, I swear. Whether it's the characters rambling nonsense whilst walking around the house, or more likely when they're all talking to each other during the pre-night cutscenes, you're bound to get laughs somewhere in here, that's for sure.
We need you right now in this group call. We're talking about a pretty serious situation.
But I'm in the middle of a song in Beat Saber. Just let me finish this song.
Now it is a crying shame that these cutscenes don't exactly have anything visual going on, but at the same time, modeling and animating in general doesn't come easy, and imagine for this game it'd probably be very time consuming. But hey, I guess if you're curious, you could always check out my fan recreation in the card in the top right after we're done. Now, this is only number 5 on the list, meaning I most likely have some quarrels with the game in some form, and well yeah, there is one big thing with this game. God damn is it difficult. Okay, so you know how I just went on about how I love the fact that each character had a unique mechanic and counters to them? Well, that point still remains the same, but I'll be damned if it doesn't also make dealing with each character that much more frustrating. With so many mechanics on the table, you're going to have one hell of a time keeping tabs on every character in the building, to the point that you'll rarely leave your camera system at all in the later nights. The fact that they are all bunched up very often as well does not help. Sometimes it's a complete guessing game on who will attack you first, and sometimes you can find yourself leaving certain defenses on, like the flashlight or sprinkler system, in fear that either Mickey or Mac will sneak in and get you while you're still trying to send Bud back. This also goes for characters such as Winston, who for as long as he sits in the room with you, will permanently stop you from using the toilet flush and doorbell to counter Bud. Now, since I've had more unfortunate run-ins with this character before, such as when he's appeared the literal second Bud walks into the room, my main strategy is to just leave him be until Bud's about to attack. Shame doesn't shut up though. With all that said though, the game is still absolutely beatable, and from the sound of it has been made slightly easier after my initial playthrough over a year ago. So if you're looking for a good challenge, but also a charming fan game full of comedy and interesting mechanics, this game is a perfect pick. And hey, if you were planning on trying to beat the game's on max mode, then oh, you're in for a wonderful time. Ain't that right, PJ?
Oh my god!
Why don't we just move on?
Nah, you just got lucky.
Okay, let's just get this out of the way. FNAF's story in general is pretty dumb, all things considered. Oh, must be the angry mob. Okay, so when I say the story is really dumb, I'm referring to certain set pieces and how said set pieces feel like quite a stretch from reality. I mean, you've got companies enforcing the use of springlock suits that can literally kill the employees if mishandled even slightly, quite gruesomely by the way. A serial killer who's able to create animatronics with the sole purpose of killing off children, get away with murdering even more children by himself, and is even capable of avoiding literal death twice. But hey, I guess it just runs in the family when you consider that his son is able to keep on top of things, even with a lack of literally any bones and organs in his body. I think I made my reasons clear. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make about all this is that if it's so easy to rip into aspects of the game's story for comedy purpose, why not expand on those tears and make an experience that helps to relive the events of Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria, all the while being completely self-aware and not giving a single toss while doing so. Oh boy, do I have a game for you. I mean, what do I really say at this point? If this didn't sum up everything in itself, then you must be watching the video properly. Day Shift at Freddy's 2 is a game. What kind of game? Honestly, it's kind of hard to nail it down. 1 second, it's an explorative adventure game where you wander the halls of Freddy Fazbear's pepperonery. Seconds later, it's a turn-based RPG having you fight violent possums found in the stage lights. And then seconds later, it's a Space Invaders shoot 'em up having you fight Robbie Rotten. God rest his soul, we'd still miss you. Now, I wouldn't really consider this game your standard FNAF fan game when regarding its gameplay. That much seems to make sense. However, it does still follow the game's time structure, covering the exact same shift just 12 hours earlier. That, and you're technically still trying to avoid yourself dying just like in the originals, except this time instead of it being kill animatronics, it's more often not trying to avoid death by jumping into the ball pit and even taking a piss when in the springlock suits. Yes, that can indeed kill you. So yeah, the gameplay is just all over the place in this one, which isn't a bad thing, it's just a note to make. So maybe we should talk about the story to get some idea what's really going on here. This game, conveniently enough, follows the events of the previous title and has you continuing on your journey working at Freddy Fazbender's Pepperonery, wearing deadly springlock suits, serving barely edible pizza to kids, and picking flashlights out of the trash pile. Wait a minute, flashlights? Is that what it was? Oh. You know what, let's just stick with that typo and let's move on, shall we? As the game progresses, you'll meet more and more characters along the way, some old faces and a lot of new ones. This is when the game's story really begins to open up, as you're then presented with multiple different character paths, all of which that will affect the future of both yourself and of Freddy Fazbender's Okay, I've really got to stop saying that name. Despite the game's biggest strength, which I'll get into after this point, the storytelling here is generally really good, even if it doesn't appear so for like 80% of it. Some of the endings really do tug on your heartstrings and can generally make you feel empathetic towards a character who literally has a phone for a head. For that reason alone, you should probably take my word on it. So now we get to the game's biggest strength. The comedy. My god, this game is hilarious, and with the exception of the areas where the game intentionally gets emotional, every other part of it just feels designed to get a chuckle out of you. From the characters mentioning gruesome events in casual conversation, how some of the characters sound vocal-wise, aka Dave.
Look at me, old sport. I'm going to go strangle some toddlers.
And especially when the game just flat out stops wanting to make sense anymore. I could recommend this game to you on this element alone with how well it's executed. The amount of stupid things you can do in this game, especially the ones you can get away with, is kind of amazing. And the fact that the developer added a 2-strike warning system this time around, allowing you to witness all this without immediately being fired on the spot, requiring you to reload a save, is also fantastic. Now, with all that said, there are a few things that I wish could have been improved on, and one of them is the camera system. This right here is how you move around the facility during the day, and at first glance, I don't really know where anything is. Like, the game lets you take a tour of the building during the first day, acting as the tutorial sort, but unfortunately the game forgets to highlight where each of the rooms are on the map, which you can only get to see after the tour is done. To be honest, this is something you can learn pretty quickly, but initially it can be a little bit of an issue, especially when you have to wind a music box that can only be found on one camera and can only save your game in another camera elsewhere. The other problem I have with this is that you can only move from your current camera to an adjacent one. This means if there's one particular camera you need to get to, you'll probably have to pass a multitude of lesser important cameras in order to reach there, which will take time off your hands, which you may have wanted to use elsewhere. Hey everyone, it's Chaos from the future here. I just want to jump in quickly to say that I was a little bit incorrect with this statement. Basically, I went back to get some extra footage for the game after I recorded all my volume and Audacity, and I realized that the time doesn't in fact go down when you're walking around the establishment. It's only when you're doing tasks and stuff inside the establishment. So I just want to quickly mention all here that this is not a criticism I can really give. I just want to correct myself and that I was an idiot, but the rest of it should still be valid to follow. So yeah, just whoops. It also subjects you to more random events as you pass by, the majority of them being perfectly harmless. However, I do recall one event in a previous playthrough a few years ago that literally kills you unless you have a certain item from the shop. Listen, you never heard it from me, but I'd advise you pick up the taser. You're welcome. For all I know, the camera system may have been improved upon in the third game, which unfortunately I wouldn't know since I haven't had the time to properly play that game. However, I do know that the previous game did this whole thing a little bit better, which is probably why this point stood out to me. But nevertheless, Day Shift at Freddy's 2 is an experience made worthwhile for the comedy alone, and the fact there's a whole game to play on top of that is just superb. There's so much you could do in it. Just, don't yiff the fox. Like, please, don't. As someone who's played FNAF fan games for at least a good 2 years now and has observed them for even longer, I feel confident in saying that the overall quality of the games have improved exponentially. Most games these days still inherit the core values of Scott's original work, such as the basic layout of the office and sometimes even using the same mechanics from the old FNAF games in their works, but I've definitely seen an increased amount of diversity and variety in these factors as time has gone on. Just for the record, I don't have a problem with fan games using the same mechanics from the original FNAF, just as long as they include something else in the gameplay to make the entire experience feel somewhat unique and different. This brings me swiftly on to our number 3 pick for the list, Fun Times at Homer's, a game that perfectly encapsulates the point I'm trying to make here. In Fun Times at Homer's, you play as the brand new security couch, tasked with guarding the Simpsons Happy Donuts establishment from, okay, you kind of get the point, intruders, thieves, drug dealers, and of course, the killer animatronics. Gameplay wise, it starts off very similar to that of the first Final Phrase game. Bart acts as your Bonnie, Lisa your Chica, and Hugo serves as your Foxy-like character. Marge also gets introduced later on and assumes the role of Funtime Freddy from Sister Location, standing at either doorway and sending Maggie down to get you after signing an audio prompt. Now, in most situations, I would probably feel a little disinterested in what the game has to offer here, because it's an experience that I've already lived out from playing Scott's games, which I wouldn't say makes this game feel like a clone, just more so that it doesn't feel at all new. Thankfully though, I don't have to think about the game like that, because the vent exists, son! From night 2 onwards, in the event that you run out of power during the night, you're allowed to crawl into the ceiling vent, which leads directly to the building's generator room. By carefully navigating through the ventilation system, you can recharge the generator in order to give yourself additional power, allowing you to continue your current playthrough of the night. Now that's generally a really cool idea, but obviously this doesn't come without risk, and these risks come in the form of 2 additional mini-games. As mentioned before, to even get to the generator room, you have to first navigate through the vents, all the while dodging Bart as he patrols the area looking for you, but also not being too slowed as to let Hugo catch up to you from behind. Then once you are inside the generator room, you have to manually charge it up whilst keeping an eye out for Lisa, Hugo, and Marge, who will all come into the room required to deal with them in a certain way. Oh, and let's not forget you've got to go back through the vents as well, so I hope you like that first minigame, because you gotta play it again! This whole mechanic is just a really interesting take on the formula, actually giving the player the means to get some more power to survive the night, while still giving them all reason to not want to risk the journey due to the difficulty that may be present here. Now, speaking of the game's overall difficulty, that's where we get to a very interesting roadblock, because I feel the game's challenge level completely hinges on how much you invest into the shop. Yeah, Fun Times at Homer's has a shop where you can use in-game currency earned from completing the nights to improve the state of your office and make defending your fabric-y couch ass much easier. So why does this surround the difficulty, you might ask? Because when I decided to do a no upgrades run during the livestream a month or 2 ago, also go follow my Twitch link in the description, please do, I could barely make it through night 3. I'm not joking. I'm 100% certain the game was designed with the intention of the player purchasing the upgrades, otherwise they'd be putting the whole mechanics to waste, and it's for that reason that I can't exactly penalize it like I did with Five Nights at Bud Rebooted for the sheer difficulty. That game was made difficult by design and didn't have any player-based factors affecting it outside of their skill level. But looking on the other side of things as well, some of these upgrades do get a little nutty later on. I just got a message. But the good upgrades are also some of the last ones you can get, so by the time you're able to buy them in-game, you're probably nearing the end of the game or are trying out the game's custom night challenges. Custom night? Yeah, that's the whole side of these games I never touch upon. Maybe because for most parts they're designed to make you tear your hair out just to get some cutscene you can probably find on the internet these days. So then, why is it that this game has the best custom night I have ever played in a FNAF fan game, not counting all my custom night games? I'll tell you. Additional gameplay content. On top of the base roster of 6 characters in the main game, Fun Times at Homer's also includes 6 additional characters that can all be unlocked through playing the custom night. And getting these characters is no easy task, as on top of getting them to spawn, you also have to beat the custom night with said new characters active in order to unlock them permanently. And if you're playing blind, you'll be required to figure out how each of them works in such a short time span. I love it. Honest to God, I think this is the perfect way for FNAF custom nights to be designed from this point forward, by simply just giving the player more content to unlock that impacts the gameplay in a way that isn't just making the pre-existing characters that much harder. This is my one wish to all FNAF fan game developers out there. If you're gonna put a custom night into your game, please design them to be like this. I think Nicholas Satoska has set an incredible example on how custom nights should be made, which makes it a crying shame that this same design structure didn't return the game's sequel. But even looking past that, Fun Times at Homer's is a wonderful fan game that takes old assets from the franchise and mixes them with a whole heap of new stuff to still make it stand out from the crowd. And of course, revolutionizes past game designs of the entire genre, setting itself as a prime example of how it's done right. Now, if you were looking for me to say something that I think the game could have improved on, well, I guess the abundance of a phone guy kind of hurts it. As a result, the game just kind of chucks paragraphs at you when new characters are introduced, telling you word for word how they work and not leaving the player to find out for themselves. But besides that, yeah, everything else is kind of solid, which probably has a lot of you questioning at this point, how is this game only number 3? Well, at this rate, I think there's only one thing that these last 2 entries can do to stay on top. More. Now, while I still believe that the overall quality of FNAF Fan-Games have definitely improved as the genres continue to grow, that doesn't mean we didn't have some classic gems right from the beginning. I mean, heck, the Fazbear Fanverse initiative includes the developers behind some of the first FNAF Fan-Games out there. You've got Emil Mako from Five Nights at Candy's, John O'Crone from One Night Flumpties, and even King Carter from Pop Goes. At earlier points in time, these were very commonly regarded as some of the best fan games for the series, even continuing to get said praise all these years later. But to put all the attention on just these developers would be missing a huge lineup of other talented developers out there who started around the same time as them. Putting Mickey, who we talked about earlier, is one said example, and while one of his games only got the 5th spot on this list, that should not be seen as a negative by anyone. Trust me, this list was really hard to make, and so many games came out very close to each other when undergoing evaluation. I mean, geez, about a year ago, Fun Times at Homer's was my number 1 pick! Anyways, I'd like to quickly remind everybody to please check out all the developers mentioned today in the description of the video, and definitely go ahead and play their games for yourself. All of them! They are all responsible for more than I've advertised in the video, so please do go and explore. Anyways, where was I? Oh yes, early FNAF Fan-Game developers. There's one individual I want to talk about here for the number 2 spot. www.wario, creator of Five Nights at Warriors. Just like all of the previously mentioned titles, Five Nights at Warriors was one of the first FNAF fan games to ever hit the pages of Game Jolt back in 2015. And for a first installment, it was pretty standard, I guess, is the best way to describe it. I mean, the game just kind of followed in the same footsteps as Scott's first title and didn't try to do anything too crazy, which is completely fine, as I've stated before, especially when the games to follow really tried to spice things up a bit, creating new office layouts, new mechanics, and as a result of these two, a brand new experience. Originally, I was going to put the 4th game on this list for having a really interesting setting, that being you're in a television having to swap channels to find Wario and the gang, and some really interesting gameplay that played perfectly into that setting. But a few months ago, www.wario came back out of nowhere and updated the entire franchise with new content, which was the perfect excuse to go back and play all the games again, as well as the ones I hadn't touched yet. And now's the exact way everyone loves Five Nights at Warriors 3. This game. Ooh, this game. I've watched various YouTubers over the years play this and have never once downloaded it for myself. And why, you might ask? Well, we'll get to that in due time. For now, story and gameplay! In Five Nights at Warriors 3, you play as Edward Coleman, a new employee just starting up at a security company, who gets a call from an unnamed stranger asking him to watch over a house with the family supposedly being out on vacation. After getting there, he realizes that he was deceived, the house is in fact full of spectral murderous ghosts, and now must survive the entire week with the vocal help of Max Peterson. Yeah, the beginning of the game just kind of throws you into it. It explains who characters are, explains you were deceived, and then you just kind of play through the game like that, which isn't a problem, especially since it means we can get to talking about the gameplay a lot sooner. And that's the best bit. I'm just going to go ahead and say it, but this game has the coolest and most inventive structure towards its main gameplay out of any FNAF fan game I've ever played. As described by Max Peterson in-game, the player character isn't allowed to stay in any room in the house for more than once, meaning that after your first night in one of the living rooms, you have to make a choice between 2 new rooms to hide in for your second night. And this isn't just an aesthetic change, by the way. The entire means of defending yourself against the ghosts also alter between rooms, meaning that every single one of the 12 rooms in this house has an entirely different mechanic that you have to learn on the fly. That is just freaking amazing. Like, so many FNAF fan games can fall into this trap of just not changing the gameplay enough with the introduction of new characters to keep the game feeling interesting. In fact, I'd honestly put Five Nights at Warriors 1 as a prime example of that, because the gameplay overall didn't change that much until a character like Mario appeared, but before then, the game just kind of kept throwing more and more characters at your doors instead, and as such, the experience remained a little stale. Which obviously makes this game look even better when considering differences between the two. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that despite my overall interest in the game over the years, I actually never played it until recently, and well, there's a good reason for that. This game generally terrifies me. Yeah, and a particularly rare sight for FNAF fan games, Five Nights at Wario's 3, I kid you not, makes me shiver when playing through certain rooms. I'm looking at the kitchen, the stairway, and oh god, the bathroom especially. The bathroom requires you to fend off the ghost using some pills you find in a medicine cabinet. Don't ask why, the game tries to explain it. The pills in question all come with side effects once consumed. This includes paralysis, which is surprisingly the least harmful of the bunch, preventing you from moving around but does not stop you from taking more pills. There's long sight pills that prevent you from seeing anything on the camera system, and then there's short sight pills that, you guessed it, take away your vision in the room for a significant amount of time. Now overall, this whole experience wouldn't be so bad if the ghost in question didn't dart around the corner at Mach 5 speed with that hellish sound effect. Unlike other FNAF fan games out there, like the first game for example, when checking the door lights, you as a player know that you are in with a chance of seeing an animatronic there, prompting you to most likely panic and close the door as fast as possible. But here, you can't do that. I mean, yeah, you could check the camera system to slow them down and maybe get an idea what the both of them are, but at the same time, you're running the risk of putting the screen down and see Ashley standing in the hallway for God knows how long, looking like she's just come out of Willy Wonka's taffy puller. Almost nobody I've seen play this game has actively used the camera system in this manner, and maybe it's because they know you can beat it without needing to use it, but I'm sure they are also aware of the risk of leaving themselves vulnerable, and for that reason will also actively avoid using those short sight pills, because what's the worst thing about dealing with a ghost using the short sight pills? Getting killed by the other ghost who had been standing in a doorway whilst you were completely blind. Anyway, so the last thing I should probably go over is the game's additional modes. There's obviously your standard mode where you play through the entire game in a reasonably balanced difficulty with nothing in particular posing a massive issue, but then there's the harder mode, which I would initially understand being here, but that's only because Five Nights at Wario's 3 didn't have a custom night in its original version, as a result of the complexity of its night structure, I can only imagine. But this version actually has a custom night now, one that allows you to mix and match the 12 playable rooms to create your own 5-night playthrough, letting you alter the difficulty of all the characters present in said rooms, as well as certain gimmicks used in those rooms, like the music box for example. But then finally, we get to the biggest inclusion of the game. The Daytime Quest, a new addition to the most recent version. This mode has you playing as Edward Coleman as he explores the house during daytime, where you're required to search the house high and low for food, as well as some other items that can actually grant you benefits during the night section. Speaking of which, you then have to find a new room to hide in before the clock strikes midnight, which then leads you to play that room's night just like you would in the standard mode. After beating a night, you then get some money based on that room's difficulty, and with that money you can spend it on opening more of the house, or use it at various shop stations where you can buy supplies like coal to cook your food, within places like the kitchen. This is honestly a really interesting mode to play through, and part of me kind of wishes that this is actually what you had to play for the game's standard mode. However, as its own thing, it's essentially the game's actual standard mode again, but now with the added challenge that you have to avoid yourself starving whilst you play. Which I will definitely take over the game just being made more difficult through character AI, you know, like in the hard mode. So yeah, I honestly can't find anything negative here. Five Nights at Wario's 3 is the oldest game that will be appearing on this list, but despite its age, this still stands out as one of the most innovative and enjoyable FNAF fan games out there, even without the new inclusions added in with the most recent update. That new content right there, oh, that's just the dessert that comes after the main course. The main course being the game's core gameplay structure. A structure that packs so much flavor and variety, gives your taste buds something new with every bite, so that your tongue doesn't grow bored of the sweet and savory sensation that sends endless shockwaves down your spine! God, I feel hungry now. Okay, let's just move on to the last pick before my starvation takes me over. Okay, so this final spot was quite an interesting one to make, mainly because at one point I wasn't actually sure if I would consider this type of FNAF fan game eligible for this list. The type of FNAF game I'm on about here are the ultimate custom night FNAF fan games. Games that are designed to have a lot more content packed into them from the beginning and completely ditch the typical 5-night structure in favour of a more open-ended experience. So if you're simply looking for a game that has a lot of stuff to do in it, then these games would seemingly be your best pick. But then I took a step back and reevaluated myself. And I remembered something. I really didn't like Scott's Ultimate Custom Night. Yeah, I'm prepared to be shot down for this, but I've got to be honest people, the concept of Ultimate Custom Night is great, but I really didn't like how it was executed. I thought the gameplay was all over the place, the control system was way too ridiculous and complex for my simple brain, and the quote-unquote progression system wasn't designed very well, and the rewards you get from it seemed kinda lame. And yeah, I know that these weird anime cutscenes actually hinted at story stuff or whatever, but the process of achieving them felt less like playing the game to challenge yourself, and more like playing the game with as little difficulty as possible, putting on the characters that for the most part did nothing, just to add to your score. But anyways, on to the number one pick. This is an Ultimate Custom Night fan game that I personally believe rectifies every issue I had with Scott's UC endgame, while at the same time offering an enjoyable experience that is familiar, yet also very different. And finally, guides the player perfectly for a game of such huge scale, making them feel accomplished for the challenges they have to face, as well as rewarding them properly for putting the extra time in to beat everything. Can you guess what it is? Five Nights at Sonic's Maniac Mania is that game for me. The Ultimate Custom Night formula done correctly, and now it sits at the top as a shining example towards all developers wishing to make a game that even comes close to what this treasure has to offer, without tracing the assets of Maniac Mania and sticking them in your own work. Seriously, some of you guys have got to stop that. That is not alright. But anyway, it's one thing to say it and another thing to explain, so let's get cracking. I don't even know where to start. Gameplay, I guess? Okay, so earlier I said that the experience you get from playing Maniac Mania is familiar, yet also very different. When saying this, I had the gameplay in mind, because put simply, Maniac Mania is all 5 of the Five Nights at Sonic's games stuck into one big package. The same characters from all those games make a return, and even bring their gameplay mechanics along with them.
But Chaos, didn't you say that you don't like it when FNAF Fan-Games reuse pre-existing assets when almost nothing original included?
Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up!
Why yes, I did say that, and it is very much true. The game doesn't change many of the character mechanics, with the exception of those who maybe share the same one as another character, or can't do everything that they could in their original games due to certain gimmicks being taken out. But the real question to be asked here is this: does the experience playing the game feel similar? No. It really doesn't, because it's one thing to play any of the FNAF games by themselves, but something entirely different to play a FNAF game that combines the same mechanics and office layouts of all 5 of them. Now all of a sudden, you find yourself shutting the doors on the cast of FNAF 1, 4, and 5, using the mask to not only deter the familiar toy and wither characters from FNAF 2, but now also some of the FNAF 1 characters who can now also be fooled, and you can even find yourself in some of the more stressful situations, like having to send FNAF 5 Shadow Sonic back by holding the light on him in the doorway, but being unable to do that because FNAF 4 Nightmare Sonic is standing in the same doorway who you are not allowed to shine a light on. These are all situations that you would never have had to deal with in any of the other games, let alone for them to be possible in the first place, and it's for that reason that I feel Maniac Mania can stand up by itself as a game that gives you a unique and different experience playing it. And just for the record, this is all coming from a guy that still heavily considers the first 4 FNAF games as clones rather than their own thing. I can respect the graphics of the game, and especially the story, which generally has some really deep lore and mystery behind it, but gameplay wise, it was honestly until FNAF 5 came out that I really felt like things were taking a much more unique direction. But while we're still on the subject of gameplay, let's quickly talk about that control scheme. In Maniac Mania, all you need to play this game is your mouse and the control key. Nothing more.
Thank you!
Like, seriously, thank you for this. I'm looking back at all my custom night's control scheme as we speak, and frankly, it's giving me a headache. So, let's move on to the game's progression system, shall we? Right from the beginning, the game gives you a tutorial to watch that features Lefty Sonic and oh wait, I've already brought the letters, so Lefty Sonic doesn't appear here anymore. Okay, I don't have the cutscene on show here, but trust me, it's a cute and comedic introduction to the game, and then you're free to do whatever you want. Which 90% of the time you will probably go to play Maniac mode, since it's one of the only things available at the start, so yeah. In here is where you can alter the difficulties of each character and set which ones you want to be active or not, your typical custom night stuff. However, what I want to focus on here is the game's challenges, which is where you'll be spending the majority of your time. Right from the start, this game includes 36 different challenges, all of which face you off against selected members of the cast, usually with some form of theme in there, like all of the characters from FNAF 1, nothing but Yoshi's and Mario's, etc. It starts off pretty easily, as the game tries to throw challenges at the player that allow them to experience every character on the roster in a much more controlled environment, so that when the bigger challenges come about later on, the player is in a much more comfortable position to handle it. But when the game feels like you're ready for a bigger challenge, it will flat out throw the all max mode at you, just at a lower difficulty. And man, beating these types of challenges in particular feels so damn rewarding. You know for a fact that it's not the main event, but knowing that you've beaten this smaller challenge really helps to reflect on how far you've come down the line, and it gives you the motivation to want to beat the rest of the game. This is especially supported by the fact that this game was only released to the public when it was proven that the all-max mode Maniac Mania could in fact be beaten. That and its harder variation that could be unlocked at a later time. Scott Cawthorn did not do this, may I remind you. He gave Ultimate Custom Night's all-max mode a good shot, but in the end, he wasn't successful. Yet despite that, he still stuck the game on the internet anyways to see if individuals like Dorko could beat it as part of a bet. I understand that it was his full intention for the game's all-max mode to not be a necessity to beat this time around, leaving all the story stuff to be unlocked through those cutscenes I mentioned earlier, but in doing that, I just feel like UCN lacks a lot of direction without an obvious end goal in sight, and the 16 challenges available in that game really don't do that much for me. As a result, I feel better off making my own nights to play. So yeah, Maniac Mania was actually built with the intention of the player beating the all-max mode and beyond. So I should probably go a little bit more regarding that beyond bit, shouldn't I? Okay, without spoiling the good stuff, Maniac Mania also includes a variety of achievements to unlock as you play. These can range from beating the game's all-max mode, getting jump scared by every character in the game, and even doing some smaller things like buying Smiler's mask from the shop. Speaking of which, yeah, this game also has a shop in here. Unlike Fun Times at Homer's shop, however, which featured upgrades that you can apply to your office, as well as of course Security Apu, who I can't help but find sound eerily familiar. Maniac Mania's shop is purely there for cosmetics, with the exception of one item, allowing you to buy plushies, ceiling decorations, and even alternate character skins. And again, yeah, I promise you that everything is here. It's just that I've already beaten the all-max mode, and so Lefty Sonic doesn't appear, and now there's nothing on the shelves, so I've already bought it all. Anyways, we should probably wrap up soon, I guess, so let's talk about the game's graphics quickly. Holy, how they look amazing in all of this. Everything just feels particularly bright and colourful in Maniac Mania, which really makes it stand out from the majority of other FNAF fan games out there, with most of them going for a darker shade, mostly for the sake of horror, and I guess to reflect the time that these games took place at. Yeah, it actually does make a lot of sense. But overall, yeah, you probably don't need half a brain to realize that I really love FNAF's Maniac Mania. From the graphics, the animation, the gameplay, the progression system, and the game's overall pace, I essentially love how it just did everything right that I thought Scott's Ultimate Custom Night did wrong. I mean, hey, they even have a DD-like character in this game in the form Balloon Toad, who's not nearly as annoying outside the fact it's Toad. He even comes in with his own set of characters that only he can spawn in, and he can't spawn in a random character on the roster anymore, which is really cool. And best of all, can be altered in terms of difficulty like everyone else, or flat out turned off if you don't want him in a night. From playing this game from start to being the all-max mode, I must have sunk about 8 to 9 hours into this game so far, which is a really big deal. Not many other FNAF fan games can hold you for that long, often lasting about 2 to 3 hours at max. This game is still easily my favourite FNAF fan game to date, and I feel confident that it's going to stay at that for a very long time. Especially when I've still got more stuff to do in it. And ladies and gentlemen, that will be my top 5 FNAF fan games of me playing FNAF fan games. You can probably tell this is unscripted because I had no idea what to say then. Before we go though, this is technically the end of the video here if you don't want to see, if all you came for was just what the games were and that was it. This is technically the end of the video here, but I did just want to ask for your attention a little bit longer because I wanted to talk about regarding what the video meant, what happens with FNAF's content going forward, as it's obviously been a big thing writing on this video, and just also just some extra general stuff to kind of talk around the FNAF community as a whole, so I hope you guys will stick around for that. Before anything though, I just wanted to quickly make one more point regarding Maniac Mania, because when I was cutting out the audio for my video, I missed out quite a big chunk of it, but mainly because a lot of it was just fluff and it didn't really get the point across. But essentially, I wanted to kind of go a little bit more regarding the art style of the game and how it looked with the graphics, to also explain that it really helps emphasize personality in the characters and overall just make every character on the roster feel a little bit more special. Like, looking through the cameras in Maniac Mania actually is a fun thing to do because characters are actually doing stuff that's kind of interesting, where it's like wiping blood on the walls, or sleeping, or lying there just not wanting to be a part of anything, or maybe browsing curtains or something. Like, the art style and the graphics of Maniac Mania also equate to giving off some really good personality from the characters involved in that game, and I really just wanted to emphasize that because it is a very, very big point, and again, it helps to sort of make Maniac Mania feel different from most other FNAF games in general, because most of the other ones go for the darker tone, the old kids were killed and it's now haunted and stuff, you know, that sort of very creepy horror topic, you know, that horror genre, where this just feels, you know, like they don't care as much. But in a way, it's because it's a game that's just there to be played and have fun with, and it felt like they had fun with it too. So yeah, I just wanted to give some more credit there to Klunsgard and the rest of the art team for it, because it's just another big point that makes this game even better with every living breath, because it's just really cool to see all these characters with personalities and really cool voiceovers too, with voice actors, many of those. Yeah. Good stuff, game. But anyway, now we get to the actual serious bit, talking about what the video meant and what happens from now, because for most people who have been keeping up my stuff, you are probably aware that this is my last FNAF video I'll be doing on my YouTube channel. And the reason is that I just want to move away from the whole genre, because I'm concerned I'm getting known for it only for FNAF. Now, obviously, the big thing with this is that FNAF is one of those series that really appeals to kids. And kids overall seem to take up a big majority of viewers on the platform these days, and they have much bigger watch times, and they are much more prone to sharing stuff around and stuff. Like, kids obviously eat this stuff up, FNAF. And while I don't have a problem with kids being in the audience, despite the fact most of them shouldn't be on the internet to begin with, it's obviously as well that as of the beginning of this year, copper was a thing, and all of a sudden we were now forced to mark our videos as either not friendly for kids or friendly for kids, and it overall kind of felt like we had to diverse audiences a little bit more, kind of focus our content in certain areas and not on others to mislead people, essentially. For the kids, of course. I obviously went for the option to appeal not towards kids, because while in the past I've always tried to aim towards all audiences, mainly by just doing stuff like not cussing or anything like that, it obviously equated more to the games I play as well and some of the other stuff. But in growing up and becoming a more developed YouTuber, it's obviously kind of apparent that you sort of aim towards one particular audience and kind of stick with it. And overall, looking at all the games I play besides FNAF, it feels like I cater more towards the older audience. Or it should be, at least. I mean, god, FNAF in itself shouldn't appeal towards kids. It's about horror animatronics and a guy killing multiple kids and stuffing them in suits, and paranormal stuff goes on. And blood is... It should not appeal to kids, but it does. I don't understand. Anyway. So essentially, I'm biting the bullet here and just kind of trying to offset this, because one, I want to try and keep the audience to a much more mature one for the sake of my channel identity and the overall area that my content focuses on, and the people who will most prefer that kind of content. But also because I don't want to be known for FNAF content, because again, FNAF content is known for doing so well because it appeals to kids. And I guess there's another point as well. Kids obviously grow up and they move on. So if I stick with FNAF content and don't end up moving on at some point, the kids are gonna grow up and just fall off FNAF, you know? Especially when if FNAF eventually dies. I don't want to be crumbling because of it, since my content was just all made up by that one series, you know? I want to be able to play a bunch of other games, try and find a much more mature audience who will most likely stick around for longer, because obviously there isn't much you go past when going past adulthood, and go from it there. So it's just essentially an evolution, really. As much as I have really enjoyed playing FNAF fan games, and will absolutely still continue to do so in my own time, and maybe I'll stream a few time to time, I don't know, but we'll have to see. But obviously, if you're going to go follow my Twitch in the description, which it is there by the way, please do go follow it. Please don't follow it just for FNAF, because you will not be getting that, you know. FNAF is going to be a very rare thing for me if I stream it at all. So yeah, you've been warned. Just no. But overall, yeah, I guess this is goodbye in a way, you know. Goodbye to me being a content creator on FNAF games and moving on to other stuff and all that jazz. I want to thank everybody who has supported me so far, though. That absolutely does not change anything. Everybody who's supported me in my FNAF videos, and maybe you've even gone over to watch some of my other videos as well. I really do appreciate it. And, of course, I can't forget the amount of friends I've made being a part of this community. Like Fernegg the Mickey, for example, PJ Does Games, or now he's known as Queenly Plays, Next Genius as well. I've got to thank those last two, by the way, for letting me use their footage in this video. I'll be putting a credit to them in the description. Also, their YouTube channels and Twitch, you want to go follow those. But yeah, obviously I've met some amazing people through playing this series and endorsing in it for such amount of time, and obviously we'll absolutely continue to interact and play games with those people because they're friggin' amazing people. So they're not going to be going anywhere. Absolutely not. You're stuck with me now. But yeah, for anyone who was here for FNAF content and only here for FNAF content, if you're going to unsubscribe now, I completely understand it. I thank you ever so much for staying around for as long as you did, but if it's not going to appeal to you, the other stuff I play, that's absolutely fine. It would probably be in better health for myself and yourself that you leave to go and watch other people do stuff that you're actually interested in, because I'm obviously not going to deliver. But of course, if there are any of you who do like me as a person and want to see the other stuff I do, I would love it if you stayed. I do a lot of other content. I do some horror games here and there from people like Dave Microwaves and Micro Horror Arcade if you do like horror games in general. And I obviously do some other stuff like strategy games, and I do action games and a lot of stuff, you know, just If you're interested, I would appreciate you sticking around, but if you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. I appreciate you all regardless. But I will say though, as like a sort of closing thought to all of this, and essentially leaving the FNAF community on the content creation aspect, I do hope the community improves in some areas, because obviously being a part of it for so long, you see the good side, and you also see the bad side. And this mainly comes from knowing the developers themselves and seeing the utter hell they go through in making these games. If you're paying close attention to the Maniac Mania portion of this video when I was talking about the tracing, that absolutely is a thing that has happened, not just in this game, but so many other games as well. And it's the behavior that I don't like seeing, because a lot of people seem to forget that the people who make the FNAF fan games are fans. That's why they're called fan games, because fans are making them. But yeah, these are just fan games, and the fans are making them for no personal gain whatsoever. They're just doing it for fun. So the last thing they should get for it is flack, demand, or threats. And I have seen so many of those with so many of these games, it's honestly disgusting. Honestly, right, if I changed this video's title from Top 5 FNAF Fan Games to Top 5 FNAF Fan Games that had audiences that really hated the developer and pushed them a bit too much, I think Maniac Mania would still be the #1 pick, because I've honestly seen everything in that community. I've seen people tracing work, people demanding the developer to make the next game and update sooner, for them to put certain stuff in their game like they own it, and threats, including death threats, which is just utterly hideous. Like, death threats in general are not acceptable under any situation. Just giving somebody the psychological worry that people are after them it's not fun. It's horrible. It's disgusting, especially when the game in question is a fan game made by someone who is a fan of the series, just like the people demanding it, fans of FNAF, and they have as much time as they want. They don't have to worry about it. It's a fun project. They can do what they want, take as much time as possible, and just, if they want to close it and not do it anymore, that's fine. Like, don't control these people, please. I have seen so much decline in the community, and I've seen many developers leave because of it. So I do hope that in my departure and saying this, that there is some improvement, because a lot of people don't do this, thankfully. A lot of people who are part of my community are very loyal, and they're very kind-hearted individuals. But obviously there are a bunch of people out there, and while this may not just be to say that this is a bad thing to those people who do it, I also do want to use this to sort of highlight that this is not acceptable for those who don't do it, so that they know for a fact that it's not acceptable, and that they can spread the word themselves, because, God, I feel so bad for some of these developers. Like, I've had thoughts in the past of maybe learning how to make a FNAF fan game, but after seeing so many audience reception to make more of it and threaten the developers doing it as well, it's just sickening. Like, oh, Christ. So I say all that to say this, just please treat each other with respect. Respect the developers, respect the time that goes into them, and if they don't want to do it anymore, respect that as well. Like, I've seen people depart from the franchise and I've been like, that's absolutely fine, dude. I understand why you want to leave. But I respect it, you know? As much as it would be great for Maniac Mania Plus to come out, because it looks really, really good, if Smiler Furcifer doesn't want to make it anymore, that's perfectly fine. It's his decision. And no one should push him, because it's his game. Respect the developers, respect the community, and respect each other. Just treat each other with respect, and don't be assholes, please. I'm leaving you all now in, I say capable hands, I don't friggin' know, but I just hope that there's improvement here and there, and I'm pretty sure many people could agree with me that there is a side of the community which is just a bit horrid, and they need to sort of learn that you can't do this. It's not fair on the developers to have to feel more pressure than they already shouldn't be feeling to begin with, because it's a fun project they're making for fun. So yeah, but yes, with all that said, I hope you guys enjoy the video regardless. I hope you guys enjoy the month and a half worth of stuff I put in here. I generally feel real proud of this, and while I don't usually feel proud about FNAF content doing well on this channel, because a lot of it just makes sense because of kid audiences, this is one of those projects that I generally put a lot of effort into, and I really hope it shows. So if it does well, I will feel good about it. So yeah. But of course, if you did enjoy what you saw, please do like the video, maybe share it around some other people who may also enjoy the video. This is obviously a much more informative FNAF video in itself. It's not about me just playing a game and being spooked, it's about me actually being very assessative with the game and evaluating and that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you would know anybody else who would like to see it, do share it around. That would be friggin' amazing. I would say subscribe if you enjoy the video as well, but that obviously isn't really the case, so I guess subscribe if you want to go and see the other content I do, or maybe you have and you like it, and don't subscribe if you don't like FNAF and don't like my other stuff. Pretty simple, really. Just one of those two, essentially. There will, of course, be some other videos in the end card at the end, in case you guys want to go and see those and see some other stuff I do. So, yeah. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, hope you enjoyed the video. Please be sure to check the description for all the games I played leading up to this, including the winners, as well as the other materials I used, like the music and the art and the footage from the other respective YouTubers there as well. Do go and give them a shout out, and go and give them a check, sorry, if you do. Go and check them. Absolutely do. I have been Chaos. You've been the ever so wonderful Lawrence, as you always are. And until next time, take care, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in what I do next. Or not, as I escape this community. Easily. Oh, my kidding, it's not going to be easy at all. You'll never take me alive!